Hey you, thanks for stopping by. Yes, you've read the title correctly, you're not seeing things, the thumbnail is exactly what it appears to be, and yes, the date is correct. What you're about to watch is a review of the latest Joe Goldberg novel, Book 4, titled For You and Only You, weeks ahead of its release. I cannot go on with this video without first giving Caroline Kepnes a huge thank you. Caroline, it's been a pleasure being able to speak to you. It was a pleasure when we first interacted sometime in 2021, I want to say. And even since interacting with you, I would have never thought that receiving an early copy of a U-book from you was possible. This is a huge first for me, and quite honestly, it made my week, if not my month. It was one of those right time, right place situations. And I don't even want to bore you all with the details. All I want to do is dive right in. But best part of it all is that when I asked about embargoes, release dates, any rules or policy that I have to follow, she told me to just do what feels right for me and my audience. And I couldn't be happier with that or this opportunity. So again, thank you, Carolyn. Now, let's get on to the video. As some of you may know, Joel Goldberg is my favorite fictional character of all time, so I was very much looking forward to this book. I've done a number of edits sympathizing with the character and his story, and I was very saddened to hear that the 5th season of the show will be the final. Maybe the Redditors can start a petition or something to do something about that. This is going to be a spoiler-free review, meaning no spoilers. My plan is to have the spoiler review out by the time the book is officially released. So if you're watching this video now, and you want me to go into specific detail about the characters and the events that happen in the book, keep an eye out, do what you gotta do, subscribe, turn on notifications, set a reminder for April 25th, and make sure that we see you back. In the meantime, thanks for being here. For You and Only You, as you can imagine, brings us back to a new beginning for Joe, along with a new love interest. Similar to the previous books, it doesn't start on the exact same note that its preceding title ends on, but it does build off of it as the story goes on. And not just in passing. When the opportunity comes, we are fully caught up to speed on where we are, how we got here, and why, and of course, what the plan is. What I also like is that the note that the third book, You Love Me, ended on, kind of becomes part of a spinal cord for this book. Even though one might describe it as just this thing that happened, it becomes sentimental to this book as something important that happened because the book constantly refers back to it, which is to be expected because Joe always refers back to things that happened. But in this case, I feel like it's prominent and sets the new slate for everything that's happening. The characters are interesting, to say the least. Of course, you have the love interest going by the name of Wonder, and then you have the batch of characters that usually only make up Joe's surroundings, so that it's not a one-on-one the whole time, give or take, of course. The family and friends of that love interest who are more important. The thing is, though, when it comes to that batch of characters who are essentially just there while the bigger story gets told, those characters sometimes are not much beyond that. If you're not the love interest or a part of that love interest's life in some way that could even make you Joel's next victim, it kind of can feel like you're just a name on the page. However, in this book, each character has their own thing going on, and we're following along with them as well. I feel like if you took them out, it just wouldn't be the same. It has that Hawkeye level importance when it comes to the Avengers. The weakest Avenger is also the most important one, therefore not the weakest or by any means unnecessary. Another thing about the characters is that the relationship that I had with each character as a reader was very mixed. You have some characters who you like from start to finish. You have characters that you like at first, but then like a little bit less later on. There's characters that Caroline did a good job of making them get under your skin, but then it flips, and then you have reasons to like them completely. It's all about what floats your boat and what grinds your gears. I feel like everyone who reads the book is going to relate to this. There were two characters in particular that definitely flipped the script on me when it came to where I stood with them, and then by the end I was like, okay, well that's definitely not where we started. One in which definitely rubbed me the wrong way at the beginning, but ended with them being a favorite character, and the other I definitely followed along with, but then by the end, I was not feeling it anymore. You'll hear more about that when the spoiler review is out, so you're not going to want to miss that. Tune in. Now let's talk about the story and plot. Like Caroline stated in the book, some things come down to questions. What if Joe did this? What if he did that? What if this was a lifestyle? Namely, what if Joe wrote a book? What if he goes to school with his love interest, essentially? I also feel like another one of those questions would be, what if Joe and the characters on his team have the same enemies, but also the same influences, rather than Joe just slapping a target on the back of whoever he deems a threat to someone else's life, whether or not that person wants that. So that's definitely something to think about while you guys wait the release of the book. How does that change things for better or for worse? What kind of dynamic comes about when they have the same problem within a person, or even when they have contradicting beliefs regarding them, mixed emotions? Because there's also that as well. It's not just the love interest holding on to things that she shouldn't hold on to because it's damaging. It's also wanting, it's also her wanting to not hold on to some people, but then Joe needs them himself for whatever the case may be, and vice versa. This definitely changes the dynamic when it comes to all the characters' relationships with each other, and it definitely has a huge impact on how the story goes. I'm going to piggyback off of that and now discuss the storytelling formula. As with every installment of the series, you kind of need those 50 chapters to take the time and let things happen, let things build, let you learn about the characters, and grow your relationship with them. And also, of course, continuing to discover Joe. Similar to You Love Me, you would think that there's not going to be anything new regarding discovery and closure, but then there is. It catches you off guard. You learn about Joe, he leaves breadcrumbs by himself as he always does, and it's never anything large, but it's always enough to paint the picture. And then before you know it, the past catches you off guard, and it becomes a story with legacy elements, and not just a fresh start that will end with another fresh start to come. Kind of like season 4 of the show, more is on the line and anything goes. Everything that takes place can definitely have you at the edge of your seat. And I think that is part of why For You and Only You stands out on its own in this series. Before I give my final thoughts, I'm going to talk about the ending. I knew the ending was near without exactly paying attention to what chapter I was on. I don't know, I guess as a writer myself, you kind of have this intuition on when a story is wrapping up and when the gates are lowering. However, that didn't change the fact that I didn't know where it was going until it was there. To make it even harder to guess, Joe has this thing where he's very pessimistic, but then he's optimistic again. Either that or he's very hesitant, and then suddenly he's very intent on doing what he said he probably wouldn't do. Because of this, I wasn't certain where this was leading until it happened, and when it did, was I satisfied with the ending? For sure I was. And here's why I was satisfied with it. There's a number of reasons. A, it was definitely unique, something we haven't seen before. B, it wasn't out of the ordinary. It was still something that made plenty of sense and wasn't aiming to simply be a shock factor to convince us that it was a twist ending. And C, it opens a new door of possibility for the future. There's actually a character in the book who is constantly reminding Joe of who he is, what his pattern is to be, and how inevitably that's how all his stories end. I'm not saying necessarily that this is about his love interest. Another character also related to this. They were all just in the same place in their life after each set of events that would happen from time to time. And it kind of sets you up to think that it's how this story would end. And the writer in me actually should have known that this was actually misleading me into preparing for the ending that wouldn't happen. And I say that because it didn't end that way at all. And now that we have that ending in our history for the Joe Goldberg series, it will always be a possibility. The You Love Me ending was also different in sequence of events, but not this kind of different. So now we can't say that we can just expect the same kind of thing over and over. Which brings me into my final thoughts. One thing I love most of continuities when they've been established isn't that they aim to continue, but that they aim to continue so that they can explore new territories. It's not about being a sequel, it's not about crossing over, and it's not even about taking things to the next level. It's really about taking what we know has happened and what will likely happen again, and then going, what if instead we put the characters in these types of situations with different types of other characters who behave differently and respond differently to everything in a different environment and see exactly how much different things can turn out while also being the same story we can all come to recognize. And that's how you get a truly all-new story and adventure that is for you and only you. A Joe Goldberg novel by Caroline Kepnes. Thank you all for watching. Don't forget there's going to be a spoiler review in the coming days, so be sure to subscribe to tune in. Special thanks once again to Caroline Kepnes for supplying with an early copy of the book. See you guys all again next time. Goodbye.